Okay. Hi. I'm going to give this a shot. What I have here is a bit of a new format using old data. So, what I've done is I went through the first 14 shoes that I ran, which were on the Martingale system. So, I'll put a link in the description to get back to those. Uh, those shoes or decks maybe were 1 and 2 deck games. These were the first ones I ran. This was when I was kind of figuring out how I was going to do this, and quite honestly, I was doing it all for myself. I didn't know if anybody was ever going to watch it, let alone subscribe. Yet people have been watching and subscribing, which is nice. Which means maybe I'm not too far off base. Like I've said in a lot of these videos, I do these for me, and then I thought I would just share them, and some people find them useful, so that's great. Um, okay, so and the reason I use those first decks or shoe games was so that I can work on this new format, ironing out some kinks, figuring out how I might show the data, and also how I'm gonna write. What I did use was spreadsheets and scripts to come up with stuff. So I had a bit of a learning curve going into this. Hopefully, I can be a little more quick going forward because now I have some scripts set up, some templates set up. This one took a little longer. If you've done programming, the first time you do it, you have to verify that it works right and find bugs. I'm using Google Sheets for this, and it's an interesting spreadsheet. It you can write regular spreadsheet functions like you do in Excel, and then it also has a scripting function, which is JavaScript, which I'm reasonably well versed in. I used to do that in a former life, and so one of the things that's kind of funny is I would or that made it difficult is I would write something as a spreadsheet function, and it wouldn't necessarily translate very well to JavaScript, so I'd have to transpose it. And I haven't been using Google Sheets a lot like this, so like there's a little bit of a learning curve there, um, and also I have been I a little bit of a learning curve here for the video editing software that I'm using. As you saw in my advice for casual and new players video, I started throwing some stuff on there. This is going to be, I'm recording the audio, and then I'm going to put it all together in the video editor. Now, what'll be nice about this is I have this set up for Martingale right now. Is once I go through any of the other shoes I've run, once I get the win-loss data, I can plug it into the Martingale formulas and generate results for those shoes applying Martingale or any other system that I set up. So so even if it was, say, like the Fibonacci shoes, I can go, well, what if we ran Martingale on that? So that's what I'm doing here. It gives us more opportunity to see more data. Now, this will really only work with, at least the way I'm thinking right now and getting started, with shoes or systems that were run that follow regular basic strategy. I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with Never Bust. Would require that I track the sequence of every card and basically come up with a simulator that would deal with that. That would figure out what the results would be, and then apply the betting strategy. or the bedding system. Okay. So I don't know when that will happen. So you'll see when I put it up here, well, that the way I dealt with multiple wins and losses from splits and double downs is I did not differentiate. This was because of a double down, or this was because of a split. Like, let's say you win two or you lose two. It that I didn't think that mattered. Um, I'll talk about that as we get to there. Um, and just quick mention, I'm still waiting for monetization approval from YouTube. It's nice to know that organization as large as YouTube moves about as slowly as I do. So, anyways, that's my intro, just to preface what we're getting into here. I'm going to put this up. Uh, if anybody has any feedback or input and things they might like to see, or ways I can make this better, I always appreciate constructive criticism. So yeah, here we go. Let's see. Okay, so here's the data from the first shoe or deck. I guess. Well, what was it? It was six. This was single deck, and these alternated from single deck to double deck games. If it was a single deck game, I would do 5 hands per deck, and then I would shuffle, and so I did that 6 times. So we get 30 hands um, per set here. And on the double deck games, I would do 10 hands with a couple of shuffles, so 3 rounds again for 30 hands. Anyways, so here's the data. In the column on the left, I'm not going to keep this on for too long. I'll just explain it for this one, and going forward, I'll just show them. If you really want to see it, you can pause it. If you really want to see it, if you in like a spreadsheet format, you can write to me, either in comments, which I keep track of, or you can direct message me, and I might be willing to share that. This is my proprietary information. So, anyways, the first, in the left column, you see the result of the hand. In the next column, you see the wager for the betting system. So in this case, it's Martingale. In the next column C, you see the result for that hand. In column D, you see and let me quickly jump back. In column C, you see the result for that hand for the betting system that's being analyzed here. Then you see in column D the result for the flat better. Now, I don't have to have a column B for the flat better. The flat better is always betting a single unit, so that's easy. Then in columns E and F, you have the running totals for the betting system, which in this case is Martingale, or the flat betting. So as they go up and down, this is what your chip stack looks like, at least as far as what your gains are. Okay, now let me just finish this, and then column G shows your win-loss streak. So I'll just keep going. Then I have a little table here that shows how many times you got a blackjack, you lost two, pushed, win two, etc. And then your final is the end of the shoe win-loss totals for the system and for the flat better. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna just explain all this. The next ones will be a little quicker. I won't have to tell you exactly what's happening each time. In E and F, like I said, that's your win-loss gains for this series. This we as I went along, I arbitrarily decided that each player or system would start with 50 units as their chip stack. So obviously that's not here, so you would add 50 to whatever that result is to see what your actual result chip stack would be. But that's not exactly important. What's more important is, are you up, are you down? Okay, so that's kind of simplified there. No need to show, because if you just said, well, 50, that's not enough, or 50, that's too many. You can now consider this from your own perspective. I always go to the table with 75 units, if that's you. So you don't have, now you just know. Okay. On the streak, the way the streak works, when you lose, the streak shows a -1. If it's a push, it remains the same. And when you win, it goes to the positive side. So as you see here, the first hand was a push. So it's obviously your streak's going to start at 0. And so push, it's going to stay at 0. Then you took a loss, so you went down 1. Then you got a blackjack, which is the same as a win. But it's not going to just go back to 0, because that would just mean that you're at well, you'll see that. Let me come down a little bit. If you look, so you go push, lose, blackjack, lose. Here we go. Once you get into this losing streak down here, you see 1, 2, 2, 3, -4, -4, -5. Then then you get the win. If you just took that back to, you can't just take it to -4. That's not what you're doing. And I didn't feel right about taking it to 0. If you go down a little bit more, you got -1, -2, then 1, 2, where you have a win 2 and a blackjack. So you're at -2 for the lose, and then you get a win. If you just took it to 0, and then you get the blackjack, that streak would only jump up to 1. When you've actually got a streak of 2 wins. So that's why, when after the -2 you get the win, you get your streak to a 1. Yeah, a streak of 1. But it made more sense to me than a streak of 0. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I show you the charts for this stuff. Okay, so and so another thing that all of this is allowing me to do is to reanalyze what happened in these shoes. And because these were the first ones and I was still kind of figuring out what was going on and how to do these, I didn't have, the Martingale and the flatbed weren't both coming in with 50 units. They were normalized, and I actually can't remember. I think it was Martingale. Was it Martingale or flat? One of them came in with double the amount of chips, was also doubling the wager. So it was still the same as a unit, but it was a little muddy. Now this is all based on units. So I think I've cleaned it up. And like I said, I could, once I write the Fibonacci or 1326 formulas, I can take these same results in column A and say, well, what if we had this shoe and we did it, a different system? How would things come out? So this gives us more data points. It can sort of be like the series where I did, the 5 different systems against each other. Martingale, Paroli, 1326, Fibonacci, and flat betting. Anyways, okay, so is that enough explainer here? So let's keep going. So that's the data, and now the charts. Okay, so what we have here is the chart that's showing on the blue line, and the blue and red lines are Martingale and flat betting, and your gains and losses as you move along. And I had it put the little data labels in there so you can see. It's up 1, 4, 3, 1, 1. Then it drops. Then you went on a losing streak, and you can see the losing streak in the orange there, and it gets a little bit hidden, but it's there. And I wanted to show that on the same chart so that you could see as your losing streak went down, as you can see, -4, but that's where you had a push. Then a -5, and then it jumps up to a 1 because your losing streak ended, and then you started a winning streak of 1, and then you went back down to -1. But you can see that as your losing streak extended, your loss extended. Now, flat betting is going to kind of mimic the streak there, and it does, but then it doesn't. It's not going to climb up the same way because you still only bet 1 unit. So you can see how it kind of came back up a little bit as the winning streak went on, and then you can see how Martingale went from -27, and on the win it jumped up to 5. Well, that was because going into this losing streak, as you can see, you were up in row 6. You had a blackjack, and you can see that at the high point of the blue line at 4. Then you went on the decline, but then remember, the way Martingale works is that when you close out your negative progression, you gain 1 from where you had been. So that's why you actually, when you were down 27, you were making a wager of 32 units, and then you jumped up to 5 because -27 plus 32 is 5. So that's what happened there. It didn't just go back to even or to +1. It went to +1 from its former high point, and you'll see that as it goes along. Now, so these larger jumps are because of multiple wins. Let's see, win 2. Yeah, that happened hand 16. When it goes, after the -27 it goes 5, 4, 2, and it jumps up to 10. That's because you had been on a losing streak. Your wager was 4 units, and through a multiple win from splits or double down, you won 8, and so you jumped up to 10. 8 plus 2 is 10. Or 4 times 2 plus 2 is 10. Okay? So again, I'm not going to talk through all of this, all the other ones. I just wanted to get us started here. So you can see you can I guess see a little more what's happening. Okay? This next chart is just a column chart based on that table of the wins and losses that you saw during that shoe or that series of decks. 3 blackjacks, 14 losses. So, and just a way to kind of more easily visualize what happened. A lot of losses there, and the last chart shows the final result of Martingale plus 12.5, the flat better down 2.5. Now, what I noticed as I was verifying this data, if you go back to the column chart, I'll just show that really quick here, that if you take the losses and the wins and you cancel out, so you have 7 more losses than wins. So right away that's -7 units. The pushes you can just ignore because nothing happened. Okay, and then you have -7 from 14 losses and 7 wins. And then you lost, you had to lose 2, so that's lose 2 more, so -9. But you had to win 2, so it's +2, so that those cancel each other out. But just for explanation's sake, and then you had 3 blackjacks, which is time and a half, so that's 4.5, right? So you have you were down 7, and then you add 4.5. Gets you to -2.5. Okay, that maybe shouldn't be such a revelation, but I found that was interesting, and so in a way, I kind of don't have to run the flat better when I'm doing these systems if I go back and analyze the wins and losses. I can tell you from looking at how many blackjacks, how many lose twos, push, win twos, win threes, whatever it is. That will tell you that in all of these, as you'll see going forward, will tell you what the flat better would come out as. Thought it was interesting. So anyways, Martingale did a lot better because every time Martingale closes its negative progression, it closes it with a gain of 1. And then you add on, regular wins are going to keep moving you up. And if you have win twos or more while you are progressing your wager, like we had up in there when it was a wager of 4 doubled down, and so it won 8. So it jumped from it when I was talking about it before. It jumped way up. So that's going to be your discrepancy there. Now, Martingale has the risk of hitting table limits, and I'll talk about that as we move forward. Okay, so let's fast forward ourselves a little bit here, or I think we're done explaining. Questions, please, and whatever, put them in the comments. Okay, so we'll call it shoe, even though it was a series of 3 double decks. Here's the data, like I've already talked about, and here are the charts. Here's the first chart showing the gains or losses next to the streak. A little easier to see here because things separated a little bit more. And I'm not going to leave it on for too long. You can always just pause. Here is the column chart showing the wins and losses. And here is the results chart. So Martingale plus 30 and the flat better plus 13.5. And if you go back to the first chart, the line chart, we didn't have any serious losing streaks. In fact, we had some good winning streaks, which really helped the flat better, and also happened to help out Martingale to almost double. Now, what I decided was for uniformity was, for some reason, when I was, this was only the second shoe that I had run, I had made a mistake on shoe number 2, and I had done a couple of extra hands somewhere along the line. So I wanted to append that data and take away those last 2 hands. And so that we only had 30 hands run instead of 32. Kind of an arbitrary decision, but that's how I want to do it. And with only running 30 hands instead, so that it's like all the other ones, it only changed our results slightly, evenly for both, really, because those missing hands were only wagers of 1 unit for Martingale anyways. Okay, anyways, moving on. Here's shoe 3 data. Take a look at that. And here's the charts. Again, we got Martingale on a little bit of a losing streak, and then a win 2 when it was down, which accounts for this large jump. One more thing that I also did here, I don't know if we ran into it yet, but we do definitely run into it in this shoe. What I had done in this series, when Martingale would lose 2, I would change. I wouldn't just simply double the wager. I'd go, the Martingale series being 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, if you can afford it, or if the table limits allow. and I would I would adjust. When I ran the series, I adjusted it so that no matter what, Martingale would end up with a gain of 1, closing out the negative progression. I decided that I would not do that in this reanalysis. And so that does change the results a little bit from the results that the original shoes had. If here on hand 18, the wager was 4. It was lose 2, so it was like a double down that didn't work out, and so then you lost 8. Now what I had done in the original series was I said, well, you had prior to that losing of 8, you had lost 2 and you had lost 1, so you add that up, that would make for an 11. So your next wager would be 12, so that you can close your negative progression with a gain of 1. I decided not to do that. It hasn't exactly been consistent with the way I've done treated multiple wins and losses. And again, it's a decision I make on my own because I can't, as far as popular as Martingale, quote popular, or what may be well known as Martingale is as a betting system, nobody has talked about that. Nobody tells you what to do. And I'm not telling you what to do either. I'm just saying this is what I'm going to do. I decided that I would strictly follow the Martingale progression. Now, if somebody would like to comment and say, no, you should do what you did originally and increase the next wager so that you close your negative progression with a gain of 1, I don't think it'd be too hard for me to adjust the scripts to take that into account. But I'm saying I didn't do that. So here, when you see it's hand 18, go back. I'll splash the data back up here really quick. That wager of 4, lose 2, result is 8. The next hand is wager is 8, and you win, and so you only win 8. And so that will be one of those places. And see where our we went from our Martingale having going 17, 9, and then back to 17. So you can see that on the line chart, it's kind of right in the middle. You see a little drop down to 9 and then back up to just 17, rather than going up. Actually should have gone higher if we had implemented the way I had originally done it, where you're closing your negative progression with a gain of 1. Anyways, so just I guess I did have some more explaining to do. So, okay, so let's get back. We saw the data, we saw the line charts. Here's the column chart showing the win-loss ratios, and the final result being Martingale up 25. Even though I didn't do that adjusting of the wagers, and the flat better coming out at 0. So a nice even hand. All right. Fourth shoe, even though I guess that would have been a double deck game. Here's our data. And here's our line chart. Again, showing, dropping down to a minus 29. Means you got to put out another 32 unit wager. So, a $5 table, that's $160. Not too far out of bounds. It, is well within table limits. And then once you make that win, you pop back up. Again, to one in excess of your prior high point. And you can see the flat bettors just kind of riding right along, right under 0. and there's your streak. Here's your view of the wins and losses, etc., and your final results of Martingale 17 and Flatbedder loss of -1. Okay. See, I told you I'd go a little more quickly. Shoe number 5, back to 6 single decks. Here's your data. Here's your chart. Things are going pretty well, and then you went on a losing streak. Martingale popped back up. Now, you see that's a big pop right there. That was got down to a wager of 32 and hit blackjack. So that's going to happen, and that's that's a bonus. That's the way the game works. So that got you way up. Here's your win-loss chart, and here's your final result comparisons. 28 for Martingale, -6 for the flat. Okay, shoe 6. Here's the data, and here's the line chart, and here's the win-loss chart, and here's the final chart. 23 for Martingale, -5 for the flat. Shoe 7, here's your data. Not so much to talk about anymore now that I hope that it's explained. And I know, I'm sorry you had to listen to me. Here's your line chart. Pretty steady uphill gains for Martingale. Little hiccup there, the -10.5, but you're gonna get that. Here's your column chart, and here's your final result chart. Martingale 17, Flatbedder +2. So this was slightly above average shoe. All right, number 8. Here's your data. And here's your line chart. So you can see this is, kind of perfect example where you get that peak in Martingale. I guess the data, whatever that number is, didn't show up on the chart. I think it's 10 after the -22. You had a 32 unit wager and they pop up to a 10. I guess it's right on the line, so they didn't feel like they had to put the number in there. I don't know how this is just the charts that it generates. But that's how the prior point there it was a 9, so that was your high point. You drop down, then you close your progression with a gain of 1. Okay, so there you go. That's what Martingale is supposed to look like. That's probably why people that like Martingale. Anyway, here's your column chart. Still more losses than wins, and which gives you Martingale up 9, Flatbedder losing 5.5. All right. Shoe number 9. Here's your data. And here is your line chart. This is the lowest that Martingale has gone to date up to this point, at -39.5, and then they had a push, so it stayed going across over there, and then didn't jump all the way back up. It didn't jump back to positive because the reason that you got there was because you had to lose 2 on hand 10, when that would be at the so you start coming down, and then this big jump down right here, you had a wager of 16, and you lost twice. You lost both sides of the split, and then the wager only increased to 32. So when it pushed you down to 39.5, then you add, and you get your win, you only add 32, so it gets you to minus 7.5. If you had been doing it the way I'd originally run it, it should push you back up to one above your high point, which up to that point had been 2, so could have been to a positive 3. Again, I decided not to do it that way. Here's your win-loss column chart and your closing final result of minus 4.5 for Martingale and minus 2.5 for the flatbedder. Now, really the only reason that Martingale is in the negative was because the shoe series or whatever ended in the middle of a progression. The last two hands you saw were both losses. Up to that point, you had still been down. Oh, and well, actually, you had been down ever since that minus 39.5 that I was talking about, because we didn't push you back up over the top, or increase the wagers, like I've been talking about. And so, that could be another supporting argument for, wanting to adjust the wager so that you close the progression with a gain every time. Even so, the last two hands were both losses, and so even if you had been, well, I guess if you had been up, it wouldn't matter, but if you had been at even, it would have closed you out as a negative. Either way, that's how it stands. That's the way that these tests are. That when the shoe is over, that's the result for that shoe, and then it's a shuffle. And on a shuffle, if you're playing consecutive 6-deck shoes, that you reset, you start over. Now you can make your own, because we're looking at it at the shoe level. You can make your own decision that on the new shoe, I'm continuing my betting progression. That's up to you. I'm only looking at it at that shoe level. Anyways, moving on. That was 9, right? Let me just make sure. Yeah, that was 9. So here's 10. Here's your data. And here's your chart. See, again, you see Martingale went down and then got right in the business of going up. Here is your win-loss column charts. And here's your final result with the Martingale of plus 18 and flatbedder plus 2. So it was a little bit good shoe, a little bit. Number 11, data and line chart. And you can tell by looking, you can tell by looking at this that, that the last chart you don't really need, because you can see, the blue line is higher than the red line. But I think it also helps to have it there. Anyways, column chart comparing, you can see you got a lot more wins, and it shows in the final with Martingale of a gain of 27.5, and the flatbedder with a gain of 14. Okay, number 12. Here's your data. And you see some big numbers there. And let's look at it on the line chart. Minus 540. Oh, that kind of broke my chart. And in fact, it kind of broke a lot of things here. And I was waiting to talk about this when we got here. First of all, you're only going to the table with 50 units. So once you get to that minus 92, you didn't have enough money. Like, our rules say that you can't reach into your pocket again, and you went to the table with X number of units, 50 units, whatever it is. Once you exceed that, I sure hope you have more money, that you didn't go to the table with every penny you have and start with that you have, you better have some reserves, Go back and watch my advice for new and casual players. But it also of not playing with money that you don't have or that you can't afford to lose, but also setting some limits. You go to the table with 50 units, and you lose those 50 units. That's it. Now, for the sake of these series, I allowed you to buy in again, but so you can you could do that. But what I'm saying is don't. The limit that I've imposed is you went to the table with 50 units. Let's say you're down 48. Your next let's use 32 because that fits in the Martingale. You're down 32 and you lose it. Okay, your next wager in the Martingale progression would be 64, but you don't have it. You only have 18. Okay, so assuming that you started at 0, you weren't up or down prior to getting into that. You only have 18, so that's your next wager. You don't reach into your pocket and then make that wager 64. Those are the rules I put in place, and I think that follows the limits. Now, if you lose that 18, you're allowed to buy in again, but it also helps give us like a clean break of that's where you busted out at. If you say chose to stop right there, you can use that as a data point. Okay, these are the decisions I make in running these. So anyways, looking at this, the reason that so what happened is you won. Look, I'm going to put the data back up really quick. Okay, so you win, you lose, blackjack, and then you go on a losing streak. Lose 2. Lose. Okay, before you finally win at the bottom of the blue line there. Now, and even then you didn't. The reason it didn't come back up was because part of what got you there was on hand 9. You had a wager of 32 and you lost 2, like you doubled down and you had 11 to a 6. You double down, you pull an ace, and then he flips a 5 and a 10 or something. I don't remember exactly. If you play enough, you will see that scenario, and so that really pushed you way down. That's what got you to the minus 92 because you had been at minus 28. Following the progression, and then so you minus 92 busted you out. Now, so like I said, and plus this chart really, the scale screws up. We can't really see what happened in the streak and the flat better. So what I did was I went in and fixed the data. I feel like. I don't know if it's really fixing. It's just adjusting it to the rules. So here's the 12B data. So you can see that after hand 9, that after losing the 16 on hand 8, you're down 28, and you only came with 50 units. That your next wager is not going to be 32. Like it was on the other shoe. It's only 22 because that's all you have. Minus 28 and 22 makes for 50, and then you'll lose again. And this did happen on the original series that you see it's lose 2. This was a double down, and this was a little bit tricky to sort out, but it does. But I did work it out and did verify it in watching the video that your wager of 22 put you at the 50 unit cap. You did not double down. So despite the fact that it says lose 2, the flat better lost 2. You lost one wager, which in this case was 22 units. So then and then it shows you being down 50. And then I let you buy in again, and then you start with a lot. You continue your losing streak, and it's yeah, you're not going to instantly make back your 50 units, but you're also not just going to keep, as you saw on the first iteration of this, go all the way down to whatever it was, minus 500 something, which is going to exceed, let's also talk, it also exceeds the table limits I put on of, the table limits of 1 unit to 100 units, or so that's like $5 to $500, or $10 to 1,000. So even at that, after, I'm going to put that back up here for a second. I think just the chart will do it. On the original version of shoe 12, after the minus 92, let's say you had that, or you had the units. Let's say you decided I'd come to the table with 100 units instead of 50. You're still going to hit a table limit at 100 units, or $500. Oh, okay. So let's say that it's because that's 100 times 5 to 500, or 10 to 1,000. Now, I recently was in a casino, and I saw at the blackjack table it was $10 minimum to $2,500 max. So that's obviously more. That's up to that's 1 to 250 units. Okay, that actually still gives us a problem here, because you can see that we get to a minus 284 before we get to the minus 540. So Martingale is still going to break there. Even if you found a table that was like $10 minimum, $5,000 max, in this situation, you're still going to exceed the table limit of, because this would be I guess not at $5, at $10 to 5,000, which is a 5 times more than what I give you here of that's 1 to 100. You're talking 1 to 500. You're still gonna bump up against the table limits there. And when you have and that was a losing streak of minus 9 that gets us there. And I guess I can talk about them because they're already published. We've seen, I think it was a 13. So you're definitely getting well out aside the bounds. So anyways, getting back to the revised one where you busted out. So you went down a little bit, and then you managed to work your way back up. And it was a bad shoe. Bad shoes happen, probably more than good shoes. Here's your column chart. You can see a lot of losses. And here is your result. So Martingale lost 39 at the end of the shoe, and the flat better minus 6.5. And that's even with the last hand being a win. So Martingale just it took a beating, and like I said, I'll let you buy in. So if you want to adjust this somehow, of like at 50 units we left, but then you didn't gain the 11 back. So that's kind of up to you. I wanted to mention that in reviewing this, I did have an error on hand 17 at the 14-minute mark. I hit a player 14 to a dealer 2 because, oops. And the deal, I guess the player won the hand. But because my note here says the dealer would have won the hand if played correctly. And then I had to go through and follow all the cards as they came out and figure out how the hands should have gone. And interestingly enough, that at the 18-minute 48-second mark, I think after 5 hands, things line back up. Isn't we've seen that in like the Never Bust series where the strategies draw cards differently. How I find that kind of fascinating how things line back up. And but the thing is that it was an extra hand. It resulted in an extra hand being dealt. But I did my best to account for that. We're still only looking at 30 hands here. Okay, so that's that. Shoe 13, here's your data. Back to a more normal scenario. Here's your line chart. As you can see, it has its ups and downs, but Martingale consistently closing negative progressions with a gain of 1 over the prior high points. You see, like, that high of 8 around the middle of the chart, and then we go on a losing streak, and then we bounce back up to 9. Okay, that's how Martingale is designed to work. Here's your win-loss column chart. And here's the final showing Martingale with a gain of 11 and the flat better losing 4.5. Okay. Shoe 14, here's your data. We're looking at some big numbers again. We'll talk about that. Here is your line chart. So as you can see, we exceeded table limits again. And as well as chip stack limits. So we're going to have to do what we did to the 12th shoe and make a 14B. So here's the revised data. Where did this happen? Hand 17, hand 16, you had a wager of 16, you lose that. That puts you at minus 25 because you had been up a little bit. Or, sorry, minus 25.5. Your next wager would be 32, but according to our rules, you don't have it. So you wager what you have, which is 24.5 units. You lose that. At least you didn't. At least it wasn't as confusing as the other one with a double loss situation. So it just puts you at 50, and I let you buy in again, and you just start over on your progression with 1, starting all over. I mean, I guess you could take your whole 50. This is not how we're doing it, but if you decided, I don't think it'd be very wise necessarily to say, well, I'm down 50. My next wager, when I buy in, I should buy in for 51 units. Oh, okay, sure, and just put yourself on that never-ending downward spiral. That's your choice. Anyways, you managed to earn a few back. You can see that in the chart. You bottomed out at minus 53 and earned your way back up to 42. So if you had done what I was saying of buying in again, you'd have to for 51, and you would then have to buy in again for 102 because you kept that losing streak. Continued on, and again we're seeing a losing streak of 8 losses in a row. So on the other shoe it was 9 in a row, I think, on 12, and this one's 8 in a row. So all that I want to point out with that is you hear some betting system promoters say, oh yeah, but after 4 losses you're going to win the next hand. Oh yeah, really? Anyways, so our there's our column chart, if I didn't say so already, and here is the final results chart. Martingale losing 42, flat better gaining 6. So, which is actually interesting because it was actually not such a bad shoe. It's just you busted out on Martingale, and you would have busted out, or you would have hit table limits either at when you got down well past 100 units and over 200 units. So if that's a 200 units, it's a $10 table with a $2,000 max. And like I said, that would have worked at the casino with the 10 to 2,500 or 2,500. It would have worked there. you're gonna draw some attention for sure. And as you know, when you play these lower limit tables and you start betting a black chip, or I would assume that they do it at some higher limit tables where you're playing $50 $100 hand and you start betting purples $500 chips, that they alert the pit boss, or the floor man, whichever, that hey, we got some big action, or maybe they don't. I sorry to say, I've never played at those very high limit tables, so I don't really know what they do. And maybe they don't. Maybe that's too insulting to that type of player. If you were one of those players, let me know. Like I tell you for sure, at a $5 table, you start making $100 wagers. They call out black action. Okay. Okay. So on the summary page here, here's our table of all the data for 14 shoes. As you can see, I used the stack adjusted data for 12B and 14B. So what you have here is you have to think of this. I like to think of it in like stock market type ways, where you buy a stock at a certain price, and one day it goes up, the next day it goes up again, and then it goes down, or whatever it does. That your gain and loss on a particular day is cumulative. It's like a running total. It's not, oh, I made and so if you go up, as you can see here, let's just let's use our data. We open the shoe in column C with plus minus 0. Okay. At one point we were as low as minus 27, and we were as high as 17 and a half, but we closed at 12 and a half. And the reason that is because the last couple of hands were losing. I think it was a lose and a lose two. In fact, that would make sense. You lose one, you double the two, you double down on lose that. That's 4, so 5 fewer than your high of 17 and a half. Okay. So then you take the close from that shoe and you carry it over, and that's your open for the next shoe. Doesn't mean that shoe is instantly a 12 and a half winner. It's just that is your running total. You buy Amazon at $1,000, for just example. Might be more than that right now. It's a lot more than that in real life. When you watch this, it might be considerably higher or lower, or who knows. Just you buy it at $1,000, and on that day it goes from where you bought it goes up 12 and a half. The next day doesn't start at $1,000 again. It starts at 1,012 and a half. Okay, and then if you have a gain, let's say that day, as we show here, of 27, then your new closing is 39 and a half, or in our Amazon situation, 1,039 and a half. And as a typical stock goes through a day, it has highs and lows. So sometimes that low is lower. That wasn't the case here. You opened at 12 and a half and you never went any lower than that. And you see on day 3, you opened at 39 and a half, which was your previous shoe's close, and at one point you went as low as 24 and a half. But that's okay, because you ended up gaining 25, and you close the day plus 64 and a half, which is then you're open for the next, etc. Again, I hope not to have to explain all of this in future series. And those of you that are familiar with the stock market, this is easy for you. Those that aren't, this is your chance to get exposed to that a little bit. So anyways, we run through that. You can see at the end of 14B, our close, that is 129 and a half. That's, even though that was a losing shoe of minus 42, the other gains that you had in the other shoes, and a couple of losses, that's what it all works out to, is a gain of 129 and a half. now we look at it on what's called the candlestick chart. Again, stock traders should be familiar with this. And what this shows is what happened on each of those shoes and how they all relate to each other. So when you see the solid rectangle, those are days when you had a gain, or shoes when you had a gain, and the hollow ones are days or shoes when you had a loss. I keep mixing myself up here. The bottom of the rectangle, whether it's solid or hollow, shows the opening, and the top of it is where it closes. And then the little line shows the range that it experienced between the open and the close. So you see, if you look at the first one, you have the bottom is on 0, and at one point you can tell it went down to, if you look at the data, it's minus 27, and at one point it worked up as high as where the little line extends to the top of 17 and a half, but then it actually closed down lower. That won't always be the case, as you can see on day 2. Sometimes all the action happened between the open and the close, and the open being the low and the close being the high. Or as you get, and that keeps going on, you see, oh, you had some down ranges. And most of the time in Martingale, well, it depends on how the shoe ends. If you end on with a couple of losses until you're in the middle of a progression, you see on day 5, you're going to have another one where you kind of go up. You were higher, but then you closed down a little because you took some small losses. So that'll happen a few times. With Martingale in particular, you're going to see where you should almost never see where you come down. You won't see it on the negative days, on the hollow ones, days, shoes, where it goes down and comes back. It should come back up. Now, if you stopped playing after busting out of 50 units, then there would not be the little stick extending down below the hollow rectangle that's there. Okay, so this shows how you went throughout your, in this case, 14 shoe series. Okay, here's the same data looking at the flat better. Okay, the minimum, open, close, high, gain, and loss. And here is the candlestick chart for it. Okay. You can. This also helps you see. Oh, we had. If on Martingale you had many more winning shoes, and here you have a few more losing shoes. Now, what I had hoped to be able to do, and I could not figure out how to get Google to do this, and it sort of makes sense. I wanted to be able to have Martingale be in blue and flatbedder be in red or yellow. I don't really care, just different colors, so that I could overlay them. Now, the other thing I would have to do, and I will do it here, is I had to put them on the same scale. The flatbedder is kind of zoomed in, or the Martingale's zoomed out. So when you look at them on the same scale, you can see much more movement in the Martingale and less in the flat. And I'm going to try it here of kind of merging them, and it sort of works here because they diverge from each other. Flatbedder stays down in a lower range, and Martingale kind of takes off. So you can kind of tell which one is which. That's where I want to make them different colors, because there will most likely be cases where they run a little closer to each other, and I gotta try to figure that out. Maybe by the time I run this through the video editing software, I'll have that figured out and I'll make that change. But otherwise, now So let's look at this. We're closing out Martingale with a gain of 129 and a half, and we're closing out the flatbedder with a gain of 1 throughout the whole series, because of how gains and losses kind of cancel each other out. And this is putting our chip stack limits on Martingale, which should be well below any table limits imposed by the casino itself. As you know, I come short of actually endorsing any betting strategy, but the Martingale, that's obviously considerably higher. So I would open that to discussion of, you know, if if you set limits and you stick to them, can Martingale actually work? So, and again, this is why I'm doing this, not just for Martingale, but for other systems too. I can take the data. I can get data from other shoes, from more shoes. So we don't have to just look at this as 14. And again, I'm running this as a bit of a starter experiment, proof of concept kind of thing. I really want to look at this on the 6 deck shoes because I think that's a little more normal. And we'll also have more hands per shoe in upwards of 40 as opposed to just 30. But not that I also don't feel that these are exactly invalid. But now I just have to go through, did win, lose, blackjack, win 2, lose 2, run the formulas in the spreadsheets, and now I can look at all of the other shoes that I've run in all of the other systems and say, this is what Martingale would have done. And as I build them out, this is what Fibonacci would have done. This is what, gosh, I don't know if I can do Chuck Temple. That one's pretty complicated. And like I said, I'm never bust. I have to really think about that one. But give me some time. Let's work on Martingale 1, 3, 2, 6, etc. Okay, so please, if you have anything to say that could help here, by all means, comment if you'd like the data in a more usable format. You can ask me for it. I'll think about it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. This is what I've been up to. It's been a good amount of work, but I've been setting up scripts and things like that. So, like I said, I just have to watch through all the videos so I don't have the data in a usable format. It's out there in the video, but I need to transcribe it. And it also gives me a chance to kind of maybe double check my work. Like I said, I think it was shoe 12, where I caught a mistake, was able to work it out. I like this, being able to reanalyze. As I run new shoes going forward, I'll try to do this a little more, maybe not on the shoe, but in this. I think this is the new summary format. I think, we can look at it. I already was kind of doing this, but I like the visual. I hope you do too. Anyways, please like and subscribe. I'm waiting on YouTube. I would like to make, like I said, a couple bucks. Like, I spend a lot of hours on this. And if I don't get anything for it, it's for me. But if you're getting something out of it, that in itself is a reward. So that's where your likes come in. But hey, I like to eat. So I could use a couple bucks, which I would really just find ways to spend on this channel. At least a little bit of it. All right. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye.